Hello, and welcome to this week's Mindset Monday episode. I have some very special tips that I want to share with you today about how to have difficult conversations as a spinoff from a conversation that I did last week inside of the Leading in Healthcare Facebook group where we had a training on how to have difficult conversations. I wanted to share a little bit of that with you, with the understanding that if you want to go over to the Leading in Healthcare Facebook community, I also gave them a free checklist that they can use to go over things and prepare them every time they have to have a conversation where it may be a little bit difficult, a coaching conversation, a punitive conversation, that type of thing. So the resources in the group, it's just search Leading in Healthcare on Facebook and you should be able to find us, even though it's a private community. Fill it out the form, I'll let you in. I'm still going to share just a couple things from that training with you here today. Now, before we get started, my name is Yashika. I'm the founder of the Lynn Group. The Lynn Group, number one, works with organizations around leadership training and around healthcare optimization strategies through our consultancy arm of our business. But then secondarily, and why you see me here on all of these Leading in Healthcare platforms that I created, was to give you some of the tips and tricks that I use with these organizations when I'm teaching their employees leadership development on a very high level, high performance leadership. So on Mondays, I usually do some sort of broadcast teaching you mindset tips, and that's what we're here to do today. And the mindset tips that we're going to go over today are directly connected with some of the things that you can incorporate to have when you have to have difficult conversations. But before I give you that information, I also want to let you know that the doors are open to the Leading in Healthcare mentorship. This is the second round of this mentorship, and it's perfect for one of two people. If you're like me, before I even went into leadership, people were always trying to get me to do it, but I would look around, everybody would be stressed out, working these long hours, burned out. And so for a very long time, I did not progress in my career because I was scared to become a leader. So if you're that type of person, this mentorship will help you out by teaching you the tips and tools and strategies and internal psychology, and give you the support and coaching and all the things that you need so that you feel like you can confidently move forward in the career progression that you're meant to do. That's more money in your pocket, more money in retirement, more money for your family. And if you learn what I'm teaching you, it does not have to be stressful. Leadership has not been stressful for me at all. And I've been all leaders, executive, everything. Okay. So if you are aspiring to become a leader or want to progress in your career, perfect for you. Number two, most of us are already leaders and we haven't been equipped with the tips and tools and tricks and training that we need to perform effectively. We don't have the resources we need. Oftentimes our organization doesn't help us in feeling supported or mentored or guided or given what we need to be successful, basically. And so if you feel like that's you and you want to get help and you want to get support around a multitude of things, around decreasing overwhelm, decreasing stress, learning how to have difficult conversations, do evals, time management, organization, motivating your team, all that type of stuff. And then learning that internal psychology so that you protect your well-being, you feel more balanced, you have time for the things that you care about and love, such as your family, your friends, yourself, all of that, then this mentorship is perfect for you. So wherever you are watching this broadcast, there's going to be some information available for you to sign up for the mentorship. It starts after spring break. So there's no excuse for you not to join because you can focus on yourself. You can, if you have kids and have to do all that, you could do all that and then close the door on the spring break and then get back to investing in yourself. And then secondarily, I've made this second cohort significantly less of a financial investment than the first one because I want very much for my fellow healthcare leaders to not struggle, because what drives healthcare, what drives quality, what drives outcomes is not only the people doing the work, right? Taking care of the patients, but it's also us being at our peak, performing optimally, making good decisions, all of that. And so if you aren't at your peak, then healthcare suffers as well. I want you to perform optimally. So wherever you're watching this, make sure you check out information to join the second cohort of the Leading in Healthcare Mentorship. Now, let's get on to what we are here to talk about, which is 2 little mindset pieces that you can incorporate when you have to have a difficult conversation. And then remember, there is a full checklist that I've created as a resource for you if you want to explore that further. And the first thing that I want you to understand that you have to understand is to get in the right mindset before you want to have these difficult conversations. Probably one of the most impactful things that I have learned as a leader is to regulate my emotions. I am somebody, number one, that I have this work ethic where I think, why should I have to talk to adults about coming to work and doing their job, right? And so, number one, I have that big bias around me because we all, even though we think we should know what to do, we all come from different conditioning, upbringings, et cetera, trainings. So that goes out the window. And then number two, I'm also the type of person that gets super emotional and maybe angry or frustrated, right? And then you can't express that at work. So then I would just feel like I wanted to cry all the time. And not crying because felt like a wimp or was just a crybaby. It's just that frustration that you feel that you can't really express in an optimal way professionally when you don't have the tools to do that, because I can pop off. So anyway, so one of the number one things that I learned was to learn how to regulate my emotions. And it came from the second tip that I'm going to give you from a book called The Four Agreements by, I think it's Don Miguel Ruiz, one of the most impactful books that I've ever read. Sorry, that's the water machine here in this Airbnb. But it was one of the most impactful books that I've ever read around, like, really showing me how to have grace and patience and understanding for other people, even in difficult conversations. So the mindset piece was around emotional regulation. And what I learned specifically around emotional regulation was to bring myself to a place of neutrality before having a conversation. And what that meant for me was, as much as I could, removing the emotions and the subjectivity out of the conversation that I was having and learning how to approach the conversation based purely from a factual standpoint. A lot of us think that we're communicating facts when we're communicating subjectivity. Factual, objective, more neutral information is information that is usually undisputable. And so therefore, if you come to a conversation more neutral, more emotionally regulated with information that is undisputable, more objective, then that leaves less room for disputes. Okay. I hope that makes sense. So then that ties into the second tip that I'm going to give you that I specifically learned from that book. And I think out of the four agreements, it was the second agreement that stated, don't take anything personally. I was taught through my upbringing and my conditioning that people acted a certain way. And if they didn't act in a way that was in alignment with how I was raised or what seemed to be common sense from my perspective, then were knowingly doing things intentionally to be divisive, to be difficult, what have you. But what that agreement taught me was that most of the actions and behaviors that I do, I don't think about other people when I do them unless, I'm intentionally having to. So that means that most of the actions and behaviors that other people are doing are not intentionally done to harm me for the most part. So that also taught me then that the actions and behaviors that people exuded were about themselves and not about me. And that freed me up to not think that somebody was intentionally being mean or being harmful or trying to make my life difficult or trying to make my job difficult. And even if it seemed like it was personal, it probably still wasn't personal. It was probably still something much deeper going on underneath the surface that I don't know about, that was the driver behind the way that myself and this other person interacted. So what that does is it allowed me not to be as emotionally triggered when having these difficult conversations. And hopefully, as you consider what I'm saying with this second tip, along with the first tip, it'll help you as well. And again, allow you to take that neutral stance and that higher perspective that I always try to talk to you about, teach you about. So those are the two tips for today for this episode. Again, don't forget to check out the Leading in Healthcare Mentorship. If you know that this is a resource that you've been wanting for so long for either yourself, or even if you are a leader that is able to give this resource to members of your team, then reach out and I can make that happen so that your team has either they can integrate with my clients, or we can make something separate for them to have this type of training available to them as well on a virtual basis. All right, so check out the link to the Leading in Healthcare Mentorship, and I will talk to you in the next episode.